Homeless shelters in D.C. were filling up, and groups were getting overwhelmed by these buses that the governors of Texas and Arizona are sending.
No one's ever wondered that I mean what I say. The question is, I sometimes say all that I mean.
After his controversial meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman,
he was negotiating for a while.
The president's agenda.
Good morning. A little bit of technical difficulties. Some of you might have seen us come on and off really quick, but holy cow, got a lot to get to over the weekend. Joe Biden is now home from his Middle Eastern trip. The busing situation started, the trolling situation started by the Texas Governor Abbott and then continued by some other governors is now a problem in D.C. Bernie Sanders versus Joe Manchin. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now. Here we go.
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Live from the Turning Point USA studios in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Jobob. This is Daily Caller Live on today. It is July 18th, the year of our Lord 2022. Thanks so much for tuning in today. You know what? We're going to pause this because I feel like things are lagging a little bit camera-wise set up. Some of this stuff, especially when you're on the road, is a little bit difficult to do. So I want to get into this stuff right away, though. This is, I think, one of the funnier troll things that happened over the weekend, over last week. Do you guys remember when Governor Abbott of Texas said, hey, we're going to start sending buses of migrants to the D.C. metro area? Well, that happened over the last couple weeks, maybe even couple months, and now the Washington, D.C. area is having an issue with it. The Washington Post was reporting about this last week, and Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., holy cow, this is lagging really a lot. The mayor of D.C. was on, I believe it was Face the Nation, over the weekend talking about the problems that it has caused. Now, do you want to see states cause problems for other cities intentionally? No, you do not. But at the same time, the federal government seems to be causing problems for border states like Texas and Arizona unnecessarily, just completely unnecessarily causing issues for those states and the people that inhabit those states. So with that, I don't want to say entirely trolling, but the decision to send buses full of illegal immigrants to the D.C. area by Texas governors started off as kind of a publicity stunt and then turned into oh my gosh, there's a problem with the D.C. homeless shelters now being overrun by the people being sent there by Texas and Arizona. Sorry for the lag again, kind of difficult here on the road here when we're doing this stuff, but I want to play this clip in its entirety. Hopefully this isn't so far behind, but you can kind of catch the gist of what's going on. If you haven't already, would really appreciate clicking the little like button, the little share button, or engaging with us in any way, shape, or form. Really, really helps us out, continue what we're doing. So would you mind doing that and watch this from Face the Nation over the weekend? Check it out.
The Washington Post reported last week that homeless shelters in D.C. were filling up. And groups were getting overwhelmed by these buses that the governors of Texas and Arizona are sending here full of migrants. How significant is this influx? How many people?
Well, this is a very significant issue. We have for sure called on the federal government to work across state lines to prevent people from really being tricked into getting on buses. We think they're largely asylum seekers who are going to final destinations that are not Washington, D.C. I worked with the White House to make sure that FEMA provided a grant to a local organization that is providing services to folks. But I fear that they're being tricked into nationwide bus trips when their final destinations are places all over the United States of America.
So I hope you could endure the choppiness of that. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties. This is tough to do on the road. But that was Muriel Bowser, the some would say communist mayor of Washington, D.C., saying, hey, our homeless shelters are being overrun by all of the illegal immigrants. To which I'm sure Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey are going to say, yeah, that's what it's like. Our entire states are being overrun by illegal immigrants. There were some statistics that popped up, again, some technical difficulties here, and I don't want to keep complaining about it, but I wanted to give you some stats on where we're at now. The U.S. Customs and Borders Patrol also released this June the monthly report, which revealed over 200,000 border crossings. Remember a year ago when Biden first took office and like 115,000 was like the biggest thing we'd ever seen? And now the reports are about 200,000 a month. That included a record number of terrorist sightings, as well over 15,000 unaccompanied children. If you remember, this is reporting coming from Fox News. Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent multiple buses full of illegal immigrants to the Washington, D.C. area to manage the growing number pouring in across the border into his state. His order to bus migrants to the D.C. area comes after many border communities have complained about the influx of illegal immigrants. So again, I don't want to go, neener, but it is kind of funny that this is actually causing a problem for the DC metro area. Again, do I want states feuding over with other states over busing people there? I don't want homeless people to get bused to California, but, well, that's a different thing in and of itself. But at the same time, the federal government is housed in D.C., and therefore that's the place, if you want them to feel the pain that people at the southern border states are feeling, that's where you gotta send them. So there's that. I'm going to move on quickly. We can talk a little bit more about that, but I just want to make sure we're getting on here, especially given some of the choppiness here. I wanted to get onto this. Bobby says, hey, the border was closed. President Biden said the border was closed. I thought, isn't that the case? No, it is not. It is wide open. But this is actually pretty important on a global scale, but especially on the scale of the Middle East. The Biden administration has been getting a lot of heat for going to Saudi Arabia. Back up a couple of years ago, a Washington Post columnist and an American citizen, Jamal Khashoggi, was killed in Turkey in the Saudi embassy, orchestrated by what many believe allegedly was the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS as he's also known. Joe Biden, during the campaign, said specifically a bunch of times he's going to make the Saudis a pariah. Now he's going to visit them, or just went to visit them over the weekend. Now, well, let's get into this first. This is reporting coming from, I believe it's Meet the Press, talking about Biden and the handshake. We talked about the handshake dilemma last week, whether or not Joe Biden was going to shake hands with MBS, and because of COVID, it's going to instead be a fist bump, which I don't understand the rationale behind that, but that is what it is. Again, we're going to play another video, and we're going to hopefully see if this works. If not, hopefully you get the audio and see how it's transpiring.
He told reporters he raised the killing of Khashoggi with the Saudi crown prince and also told him he believes he was responsible. The president saying he was straightforward and direct with MBS. He then took a few questions from reporters.
Okay, so that's reporting, I believe, coming from Face the Nation, saying President Biden said that he told MBS to his face, we know you did it, and we are very, very mad about that. By the way, I'm not pro-journalists being murdered. Nobody is. But that seems to be the hang-up entirely with this Saudi trip. There is an interesting component. Actually, it's pretty much the entirety of it that we'll talk about in a second. And you may even see a rare defending of Joe Biden and the Biden administration, but we'll see how you take it as that. Here's a little clip of them taking questions about the killing of Jamal Khashoggi. Watch this.
Yes.
You're coming under a lot of fire for your fist bump with the Crown Prince. I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to that. But also, how can you be sure that another incident, another murder like Jamal Khashoggi's won't happen again?
God love you. What a silly question. How could I possibly be sure of any of that?
Okay, that's again Joe Biden taking questions, asking about Jamal Khashoggi. They're saying, hey, how can you be sure that that'll never happen again? If we're being fair here, there's no way he's going to know that. But again, taking a ton of heat from everybody, really, from the left, because they don't like him going over and trying to negotiate foreign oil and fossil fuels, and also the fact that apparently maybe the narrative is that he's not standing up for free press and the free exchange of ideas in not condemning them entirely. Joe Biden has said, I fully and wholeheartedly condemn the Saudis for killing Jamal Khashoggi. So that is what it is. Here's this last clip before we actually talk about what the actual reason for the Saudi Arabia trip was. Watch this last clip again from Meet the Press. Check it out.
President Biden was reluctant to make this visit, perhaps out of concern of images like this one, this fist bumping with MBS when he arrived after vowing to make Saudi Arabia a pariah state. Washington Post publisher Fred Ryan called it, quote, worse than a handshake and, quote, shameful.
Okay, so there's a lot of, again, the lefty side of the media saying we hate Saudi Arabia, we hate fossil fuels, we hate that Joe Biden went over there and met with MBS. And you can agree or disagree, but here's one thing that, again, this might be rare. Here's some defense of the Biden administration going to Saudi Arabia, because a lot is to be made about, obviously, inflation. Obviously, Saudi Arabia is a huge producer of oil and the world needs oil. I don't know if you've seen gas prices. What are gas prices like where you are? They actually have been coming down due to market factors, not really anything that Joe Biden has done with his policy, especially because we're not allowing domestic drillers to continue drilling. But nevertheless, that's been the whole thing. They're talking about killing of journalists and getting Saudi oil. What was really happening over there in Saudi Arabia was what we were talking about last week. President Biden first on his trip to the Middle East met with the Israeli prime minister and a bunch of the Israeli government about not allowing Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Israel and Saudi Arabia have a lot of butting heads. They don't like each other. Up until recently, Israeli planes or planes going to Israel weren't even allowed to fly over Saudi airspace. But just like in every situation, a good villain tends to bring people together. And Iran is that good villain. They are not good villain, an evil villain. Even though the Saudis and the Israelis have their differences, they can both, quote unquote, come together over the idea that Iran is a terrible terrorist terrorist state. The United States and the Saudis agreed on the importance of stopping Iran from acquiring a nuclear weapon. During a visit by U.S. President Joe Biden, a joint statement carried by the Saudi state news agency said. The statement, President Biden also affirmed the U.S. continued commitment to supporting Saudi Arabia's security and territorial defense and facilitating the kingdom's ability to obtain necessary capabilities to defend its people against external threats, i.e. Iran. Tehran, the leading Shia and Sunni Muslim powers, there was another city in there that I think got deleted. Severed in 2016, backing of opposing sides of proxy war, yada, 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 yada. Essentially, the Saudis don't like Iran, and Iran doesn't like the Saudis. Iran has said that we are going to blow everybody up if we get a nuclear weapon. That is not... that it is a thing that is actually happening. The Saudis and the United States underscored the need to further deter Iran's interference in the internal affairs of other countries. Its support of terrorism, although its armed proxies, is an effort to destabilize the security and the stabilization of the region. Basically, Joe Biden went there to make sure that the United States, Israel, and all of the other countries in the region get support from the Saudis in not allowing Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Again, in a rare defense of the Biden administration, this seems like somewhat of a success, even though a lot of people are talking about he went there to ask for oil or he should not have gone there because of the killing of a U.S. journalist. This is how the world works, unfortunately, and even though people can commit terrible atrocities, you still have to work with them because they are global superpowers such as the Saudis. So that is what it is. That is the story coming out of Jeddah as Joe Biden was there, and I believe successfully, I don't want to say negotiated, but announced that the Saudis, Israel, and the United States are all going to work together to deter Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. I want to move on to this. The video stream seems to be working a little bit better now. Hopefully it continues to do so. This is Bernie Sanders over the weekend on ABC This Week. So last week we talked about Joe Manchin torpedoing the Biden administration's Build Back Better 2.0, which is set to have like a $2 trillion spend instead of the 3.5, probably realistically $6 trillion spend that they were trying to get in place. Joe Manchin, though, said, hey, look, we're not going to spend on unnecessary things like climate change, which is far from a proven science, or anything of that nature, especially with inflation being this high. He basically said, while inflation is this high and while the Fed is struggling to get it under control, we're not going to spend more money on quote-unquote climate change, whatever that is. Now, in fairness, Joe Manchin comes from a big coal-producing state in West Virginia. So there's that. We put the wrong Chiron. It's been a rough morning. This is not about Hunter Biden's iPhone. This is about Bernie Sanders on ABC This Week. Bernie Sanders on ABC This Week, though, said something pretty interesting, especially for Bernie Sanders' brand. The anti-establishment, the senator from Vermont, the maverick of his party, apparently bent the knee to the Biden administration over the weekend. Watch what he said, or listen to what he said that I think is kind of at odds with Bernie's usual brand. Check this out, and we'll discuss on the other side. Also, if you haven't already, would love for you to click the little like button or the little share button down here, or comment or engage with the post in any way, shape, or form. What do you think about Joe Biden and the Saudis? What do you think about the busing from Texas and some of your border states to D.C.? I think it's kind of hilarious. Let us know in the comment section, or hit the little react button or the little share button. Would really, really appreciate it. Watch this from Bernie Sanders over the weekend on ABC This Week.
I want to turn to Congress and the agenda there. Senator Joe Manchin, of course, abruptly pulled the plug this week on the Democrats'
Martha,
plans
he didn't
to
abruptly.
pass.
Martha,
Okay, he abruptly on Friday
He didn't
did
abruptly
that.
do anything.
He was
He has
negotiating
sabotaged
for a while.
the president's agenda. Look, if you check the record 6 months ago, I made it clear that you have people like Manchin, Sinema to a lesser degree, who are intentionally sabotaging the president's agenda.
Okay, so that was it. And again, sorry for this Chiron. This is not about Hunter Biden's iPhone. It's been a rough morning. But Bernie Sanders there saying that Senator Manchin is upending the president's agenda. My Bernie Sanders sounds like a lot like my Gavin Newsom impersonation. Anyways, Bernie Sanders saying that Manchin is upending the president's agenda. I didn't know that that was the job of senators. And if anything, the, again, maverick senator from Vermont should know something or two about upending the quote-unquote establishment. Weird verbiage from the senator that doesn't really go along with anybody's agenda. If anything, he's pulled the party entirely to his side, but is now complaining about a senator not, quote-unquote, going along with the president's agenda. Watch one more clip of this. Again, really, really interesting coming out of Bernie Sanders. Check it out.
Manchin says his main goal is to do what's good for West Virginia, and he's worried about inflation. Listen to what he told the West Virginia radio station. Listen to this, please.
Is that right?
Inflation is absolutely killing many, many people. They can't buy gasoline. They have a hard time buying groceries. Everything they buy and consume for their daily lives is a hardship to them.
Your reaction to that, Senator?
So, dang, that got cut off too. Bernie Sanders again continued to go on to his thing of the idea that for some reason Democratic senators need to go along with President Biden's agenda. Again, weird thing coming out of his mouth. But also, it goes without saying that, yeah, inflation is something to be concerned about. Joe Manchin, they're making the claim that, hey, inflation has really, really hurt my people, especially because West Virginia is not known for being covered in wealth. And so with that being said, he has a duty and an obligation to the people that elected him and the people that he represents to not spend trillions of more dollars that's only going to make inflation go way higher up. So again, just an interesting turn of events. Bernie Sanders sides with establishment. Weird. What are you going to say? What are you going to do? I want to get to this lastly. This was kind of interesting, making the rounds over social media. BLM swing and a miss. To give you some context here, Minneapolis Mom confronts BLM protesters after apartment shooting, saying that this is not a George Floyd situation. A Minneapolis mom was captured on video Saturday confronting Black Lives Matter, who congregated in front of her neighborhood to protest the fatal shooting of a gunman who she claimed tried to kill her and her children. I'm not going to use her name just because I don't know privacy-wise if that's something that she wants to be out there, whether or not she is. She called the police last Wednesday night after her neighbor allegedly fired his guns into her home as she cooked her kids' dinner, leaving bullet holes in the front of the wall. 2 Minneapolis police snipers shot him dead Thursday morning after a long standoff. A pistol with an extended magazine and several bullet casings was found in his apartment. Bottom line is a person who happens to be black, by the way, I don't think that matters at all, but for some reason to the BLM crowd, it does. Person that happens to be black was firing off shots into a neighbor's apartment. She called the cops, and the cops, after a long standoff, ended up shooting the guy who was armed and firing his gun. Without knowing all of the details, the BLM crowd in Minneapolis swarmed to the apartment complex and started protesting that the cops have killed another black man, regardless of whether or not he's armed and shooting into his apartment building. This was the scene that took place. This is kind of difficult to watch. We're not going to watch the whole thing. There's a longer video that we're not going to play all of it. But this was this mom who I believe called the cops on this guy who, again, was firing guns in the apartment complex. Oh, watch this. This is her confronting BLM.
Can't get my idols because you guys are celebrating his life.
It was a terror. I'm sure it was a
This
terror.
is not okay. Not okay.
You're alive.
Shut up. You guys need to just let it go. Grief in silence. This is not okay. This is not a George Floyd situation. George Floyd was unarmed. He was unarmed.
You're alive. Sorry.
This is not okay.
Dang, yeah, so big swing and a miss there for BLM. The BLM protesters ignored the mom's plea for peace on her street. The protesters claim injustice was done and commemorated Blank's death, leaving flowers, candles around, chalk name on the sidewalk, according to the local newspaper. There's a little bit more to get to in here. Sad situation all around. Again, nobody wants to see people get shot by anybody. But this mom making the case that this is not the same situation that George Floyd was. Now, there's some points of contention here with that in and of itself, so make of that what you will. But basically saying, hey, this guy was armed and firing his gun, had an extended magazine, which I believe, I don't know Minnesota gun laws, but that's definitely illegal where I live in California. I would assume it's illegal there also. And bullet casings surrounding his apartment. Dude was in a standoff with the police, had a gun, was firing his gun, I think had illegal attachments to his gun, again, extended magazine. And protesters still showed up saying, how dare the cops shoot this person to protect other people in the apartment building. Again, this mother said she was cooking dinner in her home for her kids when bullets rang through her apartment. Wild. Well, the stream looks like it got a little bit better throughout the show. So maybe I don't know. Maybe that's just a one-time kind of random occurrence. But yeah, that is what it is. Oh shoot. I wanted to talk about the Uvalde thing, but I think we again, technical difficulties this morning didn't get to that. There was some more reporting out over the weekend Obviously the full security video came out last week. We didn't really talk about it too much. I wanted to see some more analysis come out over the weekend. And there was that analysis. Maybe we'll get to that tomorrow. We'll be back in the dingy bunker, and fingers crossed the big tech overlords don't hack our stream. Either that or computing power isn't enough to do it to us. But yeah, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in, especially for the somewhat technical difficulties we had this morning. Apologize for it, and hopefully they won't be back tomorrow. If you haven't already, would love a follow on any of your social media platforms. Oops, not that. Just type in JOBOB pretty much anywhere. I'm getting snarkier on Twitter, so that's a thing. Yeah, I don't know. Truth Social is cool too if you want to follow me there. Pretty much anywhere you can just follow JOBOB. A lot of interesting stuff on any of those social media accounts. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back in the dingy bunker tomorrow, and then we're trying to figure out how to navigate this next couple days. It's going to be I was telling my wife, this is like I'm on day 3 of like a 10-day marathon sprint. And it's been tiring. Yesterday we were playing music, by the way. My wife and I play music. We had a gig in Southern California the last 2 days. Now I'm here in Phoenix doing some TPUSA stuff, going back to Southern California, then back to Tampa for Turning Point USA's Student Action Summit. If you want tickets, by the way, follow me on any of your social media accounts. Give me a message, and I can set you up with a sick promo code. But all that's going down, so this week is going to be a little bit hectic. Appreciate you sticking around and each and every day on Daily Caller Live. Really appreciate you doing so. Until tomorrow, we will have a great rest of the day, and if anything crazy happens, we'll bring it to you tomorrow. See you then. God bless America.